Okay, welcome to part 3 of the Turn Yourself into a Zombie video. Roughly, here's where I was pretty much at the end of the last video. I've added a few more things. What I did, if we look inside this scars section here, is I added a few more of the little scab areas that I ended up using as textures. And all I did for that was I did overlay, happened to work for this particular one, and I used mask just to kind of blend it in. I also warped those scabs as well. So what happened was I placed them, and then when I put them where I wanted them to make them kind of fit my face better, I did Command T, but rather than like rotate it, well, I did rotate them as well and put them in different spots, but I also then right-clicked and did warp so that I could drag different parts of that picture around to kind of make it fit the contours of my face. Same thing like we discussed with the scars and all that. The little details go a long way. So things like having a scar, or in this case stitches, that end at my shirt, showing you that it continues going on underneath my shirt, that makes things look more realistic rather than try to have all this stuff fit onto the project. Those little details like that will go a long way. So what this part of the video focuses on, this section, is going to be on coloring. And now coloring, if you do this correctly, will take you a long time. It's a relaxing thing. The more detail, the more time you put in this, better your project will look. This is really what separates an average project from a really good project. So let's kind of start looking at some of the things I did on this example, and then also show you my example from a few years ago, just to give you some different ideas. And then on this one, we'll work maybe on my lips and my teeth. I'll show you how to kind of handle those areas. And while we do that, we'll kind of look at a few new tools that you can use to help you out. So, just kind of looking at some things I was playing around with on this one. I colored my skin in. Now to do that, what I did was I used the blending mode of hue, happened to work for the color that I picked, and I ended up dropping down the opacity. Now I like lowering the opacity in the layer window here, and when I use the brush, I like having the opacity at 100%. The reason I like doing that is because if I lower the opacity here for the brush, and let's say I paint my forehead, if I come back later and I go to paint that same spot again, and I hit that same area, if I had less than 100% opacity for this, it's going to kind of be darker in that area, or that color is going to be more vibrant in that area. So whatever color I pick, you know, it would, as I run over, instead of it being kind of something you can see through, it would be a little bit different. So let's do this just to kind of show you what I'm talking about. I created this new layer here. I'm going to turn off the skin one. Let's pick a color for the skin. And I said what I like doing is keeping this at 100%. So let's do a part where it's like this. Now let's drop this down. We'll use that in a moment. So first thing I want to do is I want to show you, obviously we could turn this down. That'll get things to kind of blend through. Don't forget too that we're going to be using blending modes for these. So let's assume that hue is what I wanted again. As I crank that down, everything looks kind of consistent. So let's put that back at 100. Now let's try that same thing. Rather than me dropping the opacity here, let's do it the way I'm saying that I would not recommend doing it. If I ran over this with a lower opacity, it looks great compared to this. Again, this I lowered by messing with this. Now we're saying, well, what if we were to skip that step and just lower our brush? Well, here's the problem with that. If I run over this again, the parts that I overlapped, you can see here it's real bright, here it's not, here it's not, here it's not. So that's why I think you're better off when you're doing like base color, let's call it. I think you're much better off just kind of coloring that whole thing in full strength, and then drop the opacity till you get what you want. Obviously, I'd need to go back with the eraser and kind of clean up around my ears and all that. But this gives you an idea, kind of. That will make it more consistent for the base color. Now, colors on top of that, you're probably going to want to do a little bit differently. You will want some variation in color. So that's why it's nice to be able to change the opacity of the brush. When you're doing a big area like a face, I would probably lay down a base color and then put detail colors on top of it. So I'm going to turn that one off. Let's turn on the skin that I had done earlier. Let's see. Now, so things you may try, like I don't know, do I want my hair to be my original color? Do I want to lay another color over top of that? So again, just did a blending mode. Soft light happened to work well for this one. So I just did the hair on top of my head. I haven't done my beard. I could add that in. It's just all kind of playing around deciding what you want. So let's zoom in. Let's do like a detail area here. Let's work on the lips and the mouth again. So here's the final finished thing that I did. So you can see the teeth, instead of them just being one color, I made them kind of darker in between the teeth and darker towards the bottom. You could look at pictures from online if you need inspiration for like how small detail sections like these should look. You can also just kind of think through how it should look and kind of jog your own memory and be artistic with this. So the reason that I did the teeth the way I did as far as the darkness, in between our teeth, let's pretend you never brush your teeth, in between your teeth is where most of the junk would collect, and that will be like the darkest areas. Your lips would be rubbing against your teeth, so yeah, they'd be brown, but they wouldn't be as brown. So if you couldn't think through artistically what this thing should look like, again, just go on Google, look at some pictures of like zombie costume teeth or something along those lines, and you'll find similar things to give you ideas. So let's work through those two from scratch. So just to give you an idea here, because this is where I'm going to introduce you to a couple new tools. So let's make a layer. First we'll do the lips. Let me just throw that up here so I know which one that is. I'm going to use my brush, and again, I'm sort of laying down right now like a base color I'm kind of picturing. So I'm going to do 100% opacity for my brush. Then if I need to, I will drop down, just deciding on a color here, the opacity in my layers window. That way the lips are all roughly the same color, but I kind of get what I want. So I don't know, I'm guessing here. Let's try maybe something like that to start. And I won't really know. I may end up changing this color a few times. So my opacity is 100%. I'm on my brush. The layer opacity is 100% at the moment. I do not have a blending mode. So we know what will happen here. As I color, it completely covers everything. So I'm going to stop there. I'm going to decide on a blending mode. So I'm just kind of going through a couple that I think might work for this. That one's pretty good. What did I use on the original lips? So I did normal on that, it looks like. No, I did multiply, sorry. So let's try multiply on this new one that that's the one I'm on. Darken. So yeah, multiply is probably going to be a good bet for this. Yeah, let's go back to multiply. And that's really kind of what we do here is we just play around. You try different things till you find what works for you. Sometimes it'll be what you thought you wanted in your head. Sometimes it'll be a totally different result than what you were hoping for, but you like it. Alright, so I'm just kind of coloring here. And way too bright is my problem right now. Again, if I was doing this for real, I'd probably make this a little bit more detailed. Really zooming in, making sure I'm hitting every area perfectly. But for the sake of the video, I'm just kind of trying to move fast. Alright, good. So we can live with that. Alright, I'm going to drop the opacity just a little bit, and let me introduce you now to a new tool. So what we're going to do, we want to bring out these wrinkles, these creases in between my lips to really make my lips look like they're like dried out, nasty, and kind of just add a little bit more detail with that. So there's our lips. The way I'm going to do that, there are two tools. Now, last video we looked at the sponge. Let's look at that one first. We can use that one to add or remove color. So if it was set for desaturate, I did that to get rid of color on my cheeks, on these scabs that I put in to get rid of some of the yellow. You could also use that to saturate, and that would be to add more yellow, more color to these things. So two sets of tools that work just like that, just a little bit different purpose, the burn and the sponge. So what we need right now is the burn. Burn's going to make things darker. Dodge makes things lighter. Sorry, I may have said the sponge. The burn and the dodge. Dodge makes things lighter, burn is darker, and they both do the same thing. So here's what we're going to do. In either tool you would set up, what do you want to affect? Generally midtones are fine. That means, do you want to change the medium color things? If I set this to shadows, I would make the darkest things on the screen even darker as I use this tool. If I did highlights, it would make the lightest things darker. Dodge would do the same thing. You still pick from these three, and it's just what are you making lighter as opposed to what are you making darker. So I'm going to leave this on midtones. I'm going to make my exposure maybe even a little bit higher, just so you guys can really see what's happening here. I'm going to zoom in on the picture a little bit. Alright, there we go. We can see the lips well. I'm going to go to my burn tool, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to run over, so I'm on that layer where I painted, because this way if I don't like the result I can get rid of it. I'm going to run over this with my burn tool, and if you notice already that wrinkle has gotten much darker now. I want to make sure that I have my hardness real low because I don't want these lines to be too crisp. I want these wrinkles to look kind of natural. So I'm just starting to run over some of these wrinkles that are already on my lips and just kind of make it look like my lips are drier than they already are. So I could run over spots more than once. Because my opacity is low, if I run over it more than once, I'm going to darken those spots even more. So I'm trying to be as natural as possible with this, adding detail and just kind of making it look realistic. So a lot of times you'll do something, you won't like it, you're going to need to erase or undo that thing and then kind of try again. And you can also, here you go, I'm making up my own kind of crease in my mouth here. I'm just kind of adding these details. Alright, so I can continue doing that. You can already see, though, there's a pretty big difference between the two. I'm adding in that darker color here. And that's just kind of enhancing where those cracks are on my lip. Alright, let's look at the teeth. So, here's my final teeth. And that's kind of the result we're going for. I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to color, I'm going to do like a real yellowish brown this time. So again, be creative with what colors you pick. I'm going to use my brush. I'm going to make it small enough. And again, I'm kind of laying down a base color again, so I'm going to make sure my opacity is 100%. And what I mean by a base color is that that's like kind of like the main color we're going to be looking at. So as I start painting here, right away I'm going to put on a blending mode so I can see what I'm doing. Let's see what I did. So on this one, I did multiply. Let's jump to that on mine. Now again, I could run through all these different ones, but there you go. Multiply does seem to work pretty well for this. So I'm going to do this. Now I could play with this color if I wanted. I'd maybe go even a little bit lighter for the base on this. This color works well too. And I'd have to be real careful with where I was placing this. You can see some spots here I'm starting to get that I shouldn't, but no big deal for the sake of this video. Alright, so now that the base color is on, same deal. Let's use the burn tool. I'm going to start just kind of burning in between the teeth. Add some detail here. So this is a nice way, rather than me just changing the hue or the color that I have selected, I am instead just kind of taking what I already have and making it a little darker. So I'm going to really kind of hit in between the teeth here. So I turned up the exposure, so I'm burning these more. I'm going to hit the bottom of these a little bit. And you can kind of just see this dark color fading in. So that exposure is awfully high, so what I'm going to do is as I work, I'm probably going to turn that down just so I can run over spots more times and I'll kind of fade these results together. So now I'm burning that. Now if there was a spot I wanted to make lighter, I could use the dodge tool to do these exact same things that I'm doing now. It would just be making it lighter as opposed to darker. So you can kind of see if I keep working on this, eventually I'm going to get to the point where it sort of looks like this one. On this set of teeth, you can see I just picked more of a brown. This set of teeth was more yellow. So if I zoom out, there's my new teeth. There's the teeth I had done before this. All right. So it kind of gives you an idea of some different things that you can do. So I just showed you one small section, what we could do, just lips. Eyes, if we look at my old sample here, let's just see kind of what some of these layers are on here. So here are details around the eye. So it's hard to see that, so let's zoom in so you can really see what I'm talking about. So in this case, I just colored around the iris. That was something that I kind of stumbled into accidentally. And I just kind of added that color and I like that result. So play around with your photos. That's why if you do this well, it'll take so long, because there's so many different options for these things that you know, you're not really going to know what looks right until you just kind of try some different things. So here's a better view of those lips where I kind of added in that detail. Now there's two ways I could do that. I did that with the burn tool on that one that I showed you. I could also just have set a darker red, which maybe is what I did on this one. I'm not sure. The hair, if I zoom out a little bit here, zoom out so you can see my hair. So you can see a slight change in the color to the hair. I did that to kind of make it match the rest of the body. If you see without that hair on, it's almost like I'm wearing makeup, and then up here you can see my scalp is the original color. So I painted the hair to kind of match the rest of it. That one might just be an extra layer. Skin veins. Here's a small detail that went a long way on this project. You ready? There's with them on. There's with them off. So you can kind of see they really add a lot to this thing. And what I did for that, I painted purple with a low opacity, and I did a bunch of different shades of purple. I didn't just stick with one color for my brush. I kept changing it as I went. Again, just trying to make it as natural as possible. So that's something you could certainly do to yours. Add texture like that to your skin. Add veins beneath the skin. You could clone in texture. You could get texture from pictures on the internet. The eye bags. Mr. Arena already has dark circles around his eyes, but you could see that additional set on there, that bigger set really kind of adds to it. And again, same deal. So you can see what I did for this. I just picked multiply. I colored in dark around here and just kind of let things blend together. Teeth on this one, pretty well done the same way as the other one that I showed you. I put little veins on my eyes. So that would be a real thin brush, a little bit higher hardness, because we don't want those veins to fade in. We want those to kind of dramatically pop up and go away, almost like real veins in our eyes. Let's see, what else did I do on this one? So there's blood on my shirt. That just is a blending mode where if I turn that to normal, you'll see what that was. So you can see that's really all I did. I used, it looks like I must have used the eraser or mask to kind of get rid of parts at the top. Well, actually, you know what I did is I cloned that even further up. So the original picture stopped here. I wanted blood further up, so I took some of this and cloned it further up here. You can kind of see how that worked. Got the forehead scab. We already kind of looked at some of that. So this, I did more scabs than stitches. Just different things we can do. Let's see. What's this one? That must be a picture I used to clone something. My eyes, I actually colored my entire eyes later. Again, just kind of playing around different things you can do. There's my skin color. And that's pretty well it. Then what I did is I just put these projects onto a background. So if we zoom out, let me turn on this background. You can kind of see what I got there. Now, another thing I did to kind of enhance that, I put a slight drop shadow on me to make me look like I'm fitting in here. Now, if you notice, the lighting on me, this is the last thing we'll look at. The lighting on me is different than the lighting in the picture. This is nighttime, and I kind of look like my picture was taken in the day. So one thing I can do to fix that, I'm going to go to the original picture of me, because everything on top of me is mostly just like blending modes. We're seeing through these things onto me anyway. So let's try changing the lighting for me. Let's go to Image, Adjustments, Levels. And I'm just going to mess around with these little sliders a little bit. You don't have to exactly understand what's going on here. What you can do is just kind of play with these and see what you get. Try to make it look natural. Now, if you make yourself darker, just try not to do it so much so that we lose the detail of your project. Alright, so it doesn't look like that was a big change, but let's do that. And let's step back one step in my history just so you can see the difference. So there was the original. That is with the lighting kind of corrected for this photo. So that's a nice little last step to do this thing. Really make it look like you kind of fit into whatever background you put yourself into. So again, this part of the project, I know the video is kind of a lot of me talking. It is longer, but it's still kind of like brief for the amount of time that it's going to take you to do this stuff. The more you put into detail, the better your project will look. I can almost guarantee it. So that's the zombie project. So thanks for watching.